Hi, Hometown Church. My name is Sandra Doty, and my husband Nick and our two boys, Alvin and Bernard, attend the New Hope location. Pastor Mark asked me to share a testimony of what's been going on in our home for the last 6 weeks. And so I hope as moms and parents that you get encouraged by this testimony. As a family, we had chosen not to homeschool our children. It was nothing personal against those that were choosing it. It just wasn't something that we decided to do. And so, in fact, actually, I have said that I would never, ever homeschool, to be exact, which is now laughable and reminds you to just probably never say never, right? And so when this current circumstance started to rise and we started to hear rumblings from our kids' small faith-based private school that there was a possibility that this was going to have to happen with distance learning, I started to get fear that rose up and some anxiety, but also had this thing in the back of my mind like, it's probably not going to happen. Like, my kids are going to be able to go back to school. And then we got the email that just wasn't going to happen and that we had to start distance learning at home. And the day that we got that email and I slowly started to read each sentence, so many emotions started to bubble up in my heart. And tears started to slowly fall, and then the weeping began. And I shut my computer halfway through the email, and I ran to our bedroom and I threw myself in a huddle on the floor. And I began to have this open conversation with God. I said, I never wanted to do this. I am not enough. I am not smart enough. I am not equipped enough to take this on for our family. And then I started to ask God, like, where is this coming from? Where is this fear coming from? Where is this anxiety coming from? And I got a picture of myself when, as a little girl, sitting at a desk with an assignment in front of me and feeling those same exact emotions. When I was growing up, I had a ton of learning challenges that I had to persevere through. I had to have special reading classes, comprehension, math, like you name it. Anything that I succeeded at: singing, art, and drama. That's what I succeeded at. The other subjects were so challenging. And so when I saw that little girl, I thought, oh my goodness, my little girl heart felt the same way as I felt right now, being told that I had to take on this distance learning for my children. And I will tell you this, the last 6 weeks of distance learning, I mean, there's own challenges involved with it, but we have seen a ton of growth in our family and in our children, and how we love one another. And then just even in that small moment of God showing me my little girl heart, and it's almost like he just picked me up and was like, you are enough, and you were enough back then, and you will be enough right now. And this is something that you will have to persevere with as a family, but I will equip you and I will help you, and you can do this. And God has also really shown me that this time is my gift. And so that's what I've tried to look at it with my children, is that this time is our gift. This is something that we will be able to look back as a family, and we will be able to look through the tears, look through the laughter, look through the joy, and look through the things of how God has grown us. I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day, and we can do this. We can persevere through this. We have a few more weeks. Hang in there, and I love you guys.
Good morning and welcome to Hometown Church. My name is Mike Langlois, and I am the campus pastor at Hometown Lakeville, and I'm glad you chose to be with us here this morning. If you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, thanks for being with us. If you're brand new, we're so glad you chose to check us out. And I want to say a very special Happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are out there. And Mom, I know you're listening, so I want to tell you I love you, and I'm so thankful that God made you my mom. And I look forward to having a Zoom call with you later tonight so we can connect. We are wrapping up a series called Persevere, week number 4, and Pastor Mark Bowen is teaching us this morning, and I'm really looking forward to it. This has been a wonderful series for me. Hopefully it's been very practical and helpful for you as well, given all that's going on around us. You know, Jesus said that in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And I'm thankful this morning that we have a God who has overcome. So let's look to him in prayer as we begin. Would you bow your heads with me? Pray. Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you for your great love for us. When I think about the social distancing that we're enduring, God, I'm thankful that you're a God who is near. And we worship you this morning. We thank you for all that you have for us. Help us to be attentive. Help us to listen to your heart as you speak to us individually. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, church, let's sing. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Yeah. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Come on, church, sing it. Let the neighbors hear. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Let's make some declarations. Here we go. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing is better than you. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Amen. Church, pray with me. God, we praise you this morning. God, you specialize in turning things around. You specialize in turning graves into gardens. You specialize in making a way when we don't see one. And we thank you for that, God. We thank you that you are moving, that you are active, that you're a God of power, and we can trust you. Even when the future, we can't quite see it, when it just seems blurry, when there's so much division out there, God, you're working, and one day we'll get to see all the things you did in this time, and we praise you for that this morning.
Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name still, call the seas to still, the rage in me to still every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name. Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, 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 you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
Dear Mom,
Dear Mom,
Dear Mom,
Dear Mom,
dear Mom,
Mom, you are bright and young. You are quick and fun. You are joyful and witty, and you're as playful as a kitty. Thank you for encouraging me when I'm feeling down. Thank you for playing with me and being right there to help me with school. And thank you for guiding my every step. Thank you for being the best mom in the world. I love you.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for giving birth to me and feeding me and getting me nice clothes and driving me around without asking for gas money and giving me a place to live without asking for rent. And thank you for working 3 jobs just to provide for me. Thank you for always encouraging me and having my back and showing me that I can do things even when I think I can't. I know there are times when we don't get along perfectly, but I always love you. Happy Mother's Day.
I love you because you make food for me. You play with me. You spend time with me. You drive me to activities. You drive me to friends' houses. And you let me talk to friends on your phone.
thank you for never leaving my side when I'm hurting or sick. Thank you for always helping me when I've done something wrong, helping me learn and understand. Thank you for helping me with fights with Josh, and thank you for always hearing both sides and counseling us in what to do. Thank you for raising me in a God-centered home and teaching me about my Savior and eventually helping me to accept Christ. Thank you for always being open and honest about any questions I've had. Thank you for always loving and accepting my friends and treating them like your own kids. Thank you for putting up with all the drama and emotions in my life. I know the girl stuff can be a lot. And lastly, thank you for choosing to accept Christ when you were younger. If you hadn't, who knows where you would be right now? Maybe you never would have met Dad, maybe you never would have had kids. So for that, I'm eternally grateful because you're my mom and there will never be a better mom out there for me. So happy Mother's Day. I love you.
Mom, thank you for cooking good food and helping me in school, playing with me, making puzzles with me, and playing Uno with me. I'm so glad that you are my mama, and I love you forever.
My mom is the best because you brought me to my first Vikings game for my birthday. It's like you're a fairy and you granted my wish. I love you because you protect me and love me more than your favorite chocolate, which we all know is Ghirardelli peppermint bark. Look on the backside.
for believing in my dreams, even after making fun of them for a little bit, for never stopping me from being a dreamer, For the nights you believed in my beauty, even when the only thing I could see was ugliness. For the times I thought my life was over, and you were there to pick up the pieces. For teaching me that strength, character, and honesty are true wealth. But hard work, elbow grease, and money aren't bad either. And for teaching me how to pray like God is right there in the room, listening. I'd like to say, thank you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
And seeing your faith encouraged my own. Thank you for having compassion for me when I fail and mess up. You don't attack me for it. You love me through it. Happy Mother's Day.
I'm not really the best at writing letters and stuff, but here it goes. First off, I just want to say thank you for all the time and effort you put into this family. I know you get stressed and tired a lot, but we really do appreciate it. I'm not going to say that I know what it feels like, because honestly, I don't. But saying how dedicated you are in building us a future really shows that I have the best mom in the entire world, and that I wouldn't change a thing. Well, maybe one thing, but we can talk about my wants and needs later. I truly couldn't ask for someone better. I love you, Mom, and I hope I make you proud. I'm really trying. Just sometimes I'm a little slower. Love you, Mom, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you for helping me to diligently wake up and have my quiet time every morning. Thank you for going out of your way to help me with my dietary needs. Thank you for driving me to most of my jobs, sports events, classes, and more. Thank you that you love board games and are always willing to play one with me, even if you get smoked. I also want to thank you for being present on every one of my birthdays. And lastly, I want to thank you for being the best mom. Happy Mother's Day.
My best time with my mom when she took us to Disneyland. I really like how you like to play games with us and that you work hard to make food for us. And I really like how you cook and that you play with us and that you're willing to take us to the cabin and that you're so loving and kind and that you care for us when we get hurt and are willing to homeschool us and not send us off to normal school. I love you, AJ.
I'm so grateful and lucky to have you as a mom. You're a perfect blend of seriousness and humor. Thank you for bringing me up the way you have and for helping me on my walk with the Lord. I hope that this is the best Mother's Day you've ever had. You're the best. Also, I just want to thank you for helping me on my journey through life and just getting me to know who I am. Thank you.
When I was 15 years old, several underage friends and I foolishly ventured into the seedy part of Milwaukee to an establishment known for serving alcohol to minors. The four of us took a table in a dark corner, and we sent the guy with the most facial hair to order a round of beer. We'd barely tasted the beer when two undercover police officers approached the table and ID'd us. Soon, they handcuffed us, arrested us, and booked us into the 4th Precinct in Milwaukee. And they informed us we would be actually testifying in court against the establishment that had illegally served us. Turns out the place was a hot spot for trafficking heroin. And our case was the tipping point for the city of Milwaukee to close that establishment down. What were my consequences? Well, my parents grounded me indefinitely. And that turned into 2 months. And in the moment, I thought, this discipline is so severe. I don't need this. They're just going overboard. I actually considered running away. Today, as I look back, knowing how I was risk attracted at age 15, knowing how bulletproof I thought I was, today I recognize my parents' discipline was wise, loving, necessary, and actually merciful. Today we're talking about the purpose of heaven's discipline. Context of what we'll read shortly in Hebrews 12. This is the epistle to the Hebrews. It's a public pastoral counseling letter written to people so beaten down by difficulty and hardship, they're thinking about running away. They're thinking about giving up. Let's read together Hebrews 12, 5 through 12. And have you forgotten the encouraging words God spoke to you as children? He said, "My child, don't make light of the Lord's discipline, and don't give up when he corrects you. For the Lord disciplines those he loves. He punishes each one he accepts as a child. As you endure this divine discipline, remember, God is treating you as his own children. Who ever heard of a child who's never disciplined by a father? If God doesn't discipline you as he does all of his children, it means that you are illegitimate, not really his children at all. Since we respected our earthly fathers who disciplined us, shouldn't we submit even more to the discipline of the Father of our spirits and live forever? For our earthly fathers disciplined us for a few years, doing the best they knew how. But God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. No discipline is enjoyable while it's happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. So take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. We'll look now at the sermon in a sentence. We cooperate with God's plan for hardship and suffering when we expect trouble, commit to character, and submit to our Father. Now, that might not feel intuitive at all, but I'd like you to consider it this morning as we look through the contents of what we just read. You see, growing up emotionally and spiritually, it's a process where we actually have to be exposed to hardship so that we can learn how to manage complex and challenging things. Let's start with expect some trouble. Does that sound cynical? Maybe you're thinking, well, shouldn't we be full of faith and hopefulness? Well, yes, faith and hopefulness in God, but there's trouble in a fallen world. Our selfishness, our shallowness, our sinfulness, the fallenness of the world, the opposition of our spiritual enemy, the devil, yeah, we should expect trouble. And expectations are everything. They're about half the battle. Mother's Day. What expectations might you have on Mother's Day? You know, Mother's Day, there's lots of trouble, actually. Holidays are often times of emotional turmoil for lots of people because of the losses, concrete and symbolic, that we're reminded of. You know, many people feel particularly beaten down on Mother's Day to the point of thinking of giving up. Some of you really didn't want to stream online church today on Mother's Day. Why might that be? Well, maybe your mother's no longer alive and you really miss her. Maybe you're estranged from your mom and a bit turned off by all the syrup on this holiday. Maybe you've got a mom who's really sick and you don't know how much longer you're going to have her. Maybe you're a single dad and you hurt for your kids because they struggle with a part-time mom. Others are single moms and they struggle as the only full-time parent, or maybe the only parent. Some of us have experienced the devastating loss of a child's death. Others are experiencing right now, many, a full-time mom role that is unprecedented In these challenging times, you're just struggling to hold it together as for the first time ever, you're also filling in as teacher, trying to help them homeschool, and you're swamped. There's probably some streaming this morning who secretly wish they didn't have kids, and others so desperately want a child they would give anything. And some are struggling right now with domestic conflict. The police tell us that domestic calls are the number one thing on the rise during this quarantine and shelter at home. You know, we should expect some trouble. And that isn't cynical. I think it's realistic. And our worldview hinders us there. That is, our worldview in America that's predominant. I'm going to introduce a word that might be new to you, the word anomie. Anomie. What is that? It's having no transcendent standard of right or wrong. You can look it up in Wikipedia. They've got a good definition. They say it's the condition in which a society provides no moral guidance. And what does that give rise to when a culture doesn't have a biblical worldview? Well, then the prime directive sets you up not to handle hardship or suffering. Because the prime directive becomes, oh, I'm going to maximize my comfort now. And I'm going to avoid all suffering as much as possible. That becomes your prime directive. Oh, that expectation doesn't match reality in a fallen world. And suffering that can't be borne actually reveals structural problems in our worldview. You know what anomie has brought since the 1950s and 60s when it began to be widespread in our culture? Folks who look good on the outside, but, oh, they're kind of empty on the inside. Oh, you know that there is an explosion of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, anorexia, cutting, even suicide. Experts tie it back in part to anomie, having no transcendent sense of right and wrong, no standard values by which to order your life, the anchor that we really need. You know, I think we've become a privileged generation that has forgotten largely our transcendent purpose and the values that anchor us in storms. And maybe today, you're kind of smart and you look well-groomed and you're externally successful, but inside you feel disconnected, vacant, and maybe ungrateful and a little entitled. You might even be desperately unhappy despite the advantages of money and possessions. Am I trying to shame you? Not at all. We need this wake-up call, or we're not going to manage life very well. A couple diagnostic questions on your worldview, whether you expect enough trouble or not. Have you encountered hardship that has shattered you that you know a previous generation would have considered very livable? Another way to ask the same question, what do you see as necessity that your grandparents would have seen as luxury? Those are not shaming questions. They are perspective questions. We have to expect some trouble, or when it comes, we will not handle it well. And we have to commit to character formation. Character formation. We have to commit. You know, the opposite of anomie is the word translated in our passage today, discipline. The word translated discipline is the Greek word paideia. What does it mean? Paideia means God's moral, holistic instruction. Paideia means, this is the seeking of the overall health and flourishing of a human being. That's what God's discipline is all about. That English word discipline does not capture the full meaning of the Greek word paideia. We get the word pediatrician from paideia. What is the agenda of a pediatrician? Even when they're putting a needle in a little kid's arm and causing some pain, their agenda is the thriving, the health of that child, the growth in character, and the total thriving of a human being. That's God's agenda as our Father. And that's really a beautiful thing. God's job description includes giving us paideia. And what is his agenda? Oh, he wants our thriving. That's what he's after. We have to learn to recognize when troubles come in life, it is part of God's fatherly care. I know that's really a stretch for some of us because of our home of origin, because of all sorts of things. But a subset of God's paideia, not the core, includes discipline. And what is that? It's non-destructive, designed pain. It is correction that grows character. This is not a new idea in the Bible. David in Psalm 119 said it very clearly. He said, I used to wander off until you disciplined me. This is a prayer to God. He said, the suffering you sent was good for me. David prayed, you disciplined me because I needed it. Now, are these the words of a masochist? Oh, no. They are words of wisdom because David has joined God in his paideia, God's agenda to grow his character. David learned to commit to character in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of hardship, in the midst of suffering. And we have to learn the same thing. It's a little bit like exercise grows muscle and suffering hardship grows character. Haven't you seen the sign in the gym, no pain, no gain? Exercise. And when you meet the extraordinary exertion of exercise in the gym, in the moment, don't you feel weaker? In the moment, after that umpteenth curl, doesn't your bicep feel like spaghetti noodles? And yet, you're actually getting stronger over time. Because the way it really works is, in the gym, when you do those curls and you do that extraordinary exertion, combine it with nutrition and rest, you get stronger. Oh, what's true for curls and biceps in the gym is true for character and suffering in life. If we meet the troubles in life, as Hebrews coaches us to in this very chapter, with humility, with hold steady faith, a commitment to God's paideia, his design for our character growth, then as we face agony, not when, not if, as, our extraordinary exertion and suffering, well, at times you're going to feel like your faith, your commitment, your patience, your compassion, your courage are fading and failing. However, extraordinary exertion and suffering combined with a measure of wise soul rest and nutrition, it actually results in measurable growth in character. You know, your faith has to be tested if it's going to mature. Your commitments are going to have to be threatened if they're going to grow. Patience must be taxed for it to increase. Compassion won't deepen unless it's tapped. Courage isn't forged into greatness unless it's challenged. The book of Romans says it this way: we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know they help us develop endurance, and endurance develops strength of character. And character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. Oh, this is a big deal. When does character grow strongest? Not in easy times, not in ideal circumstances, in the midst of pressure. Oh, in difficult circumstances, when there's tension, family tension, all sorts of tension, against the tide of our culture's yearning for comfort. That's where character grows, despite fears, despite swirling doubts. In a sense, through hardship and suffering, when the external brokenness of the world comes into my life such that my internal brokenness is exposed and tested, I am given the opportunity to grow stronger character. This passage says endure. And that's important. This is a big deal. You got to do the next right thing, even when it's hard. You got to stay the course, even when it's hard. Just like those curls. The most growth comes when it gets toughest. and a great question to ask your Father, the one who loves you. Oh, Lord, what weakness of mine is exposed in this suffering, in this hardship? What correction do you have for me that I could listen to? Well, that prayer is really a prayer of submission to your Father, the one who disciplines us for our good. You know, human parenting's a mixed bag, but not God's. Difficulty is a part of his fatherly care. He disciplines his children as a sign of his fatherly love for us. And that discipline's often painful and misery-producing and makes us want to quit or run away. But there's a loving plan behind it. So the instruction is submit. You know what that takes, don't you? Humility. You realize that children, they just don't understand the why behind the discipline of their parents until much later, years later, even when the discipline of their parents is good. And may I say it gently, just because you do not have in your plan the suffering that you now face does not mean there is no plan. Oh, it takes humility to submit. And the instruction is don't ignore and don't give up. Why do people ignore? Well, that's denial. That's self-protection through stoic refusal to feel pain, a refusal to look for corrective growth and hardship. Why do people give up? Well, out of self-pity, out of hysterics or despair. Maybe they're saying in their heart, I can't see a reason, so there can't be one. You know what unites those two, ignoring or giving up? Very often, it's projecting the dysfunction of our own parents on God and fearing submission to him because we think he just wants to hurt me. He doesn't care about me. I care more about me than he does. Oh, to submit, you can't project. You can't project what you might have grown up with that was broken on God who is not broken. I love this next verse, Lamentations chapter 3. Though he brings grief, he also shows compassion because of the greatness of his unfailing love. Oh, for he does not enjoy hurting people or causing them sorrow. Just as David was not a masochist in his commitment to character formation in the midst of hardship, God is no sadist in the midst of his threading hardship into our story for our character development. And that brings us to the purpose of heaven's discipline. Again, Hebrews 12, verse 10, for our earthly fathers disciplined us for a few years, doing the best they knew how. But God's discipline is always good for us, so that we might share in his holiness. You know, the exceptionally painful trial you might be going through right now in your marriage, in your finances, work, family, health, could you begin to see it as something that God can and wants to use to make you more like Jesus? Could you maybe begin to turn a corner there? Zig Ziglar said, a child who is not disciplined in love by his little world, meaning that child's parents, will be disciplined without love by the big world. We're told in Hebrews 12 to endure hardship is discipline. God is training you as his child. And in your small world, he is training you, disciplining you with love. Can you begin to see sufferings and difficulties that God allows as his way of getting his greatness and his glory deeper into your soul so that you share his values and his character more? May I ask, what is your highest good? If it's comfort and freedom from suffering, you won't handle hardship very well. Perhaps it's time for a paradigm shift. Perhaps it's time to share God, his purpose for our hardships. That is, sharing in his holiness, driving deeper roots into his glory and goodness. Hebrews 12, verse 12 says this, so take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. How? Well, we have to look back to Hebrews 12, verse 2. It's a really important clue on how to strengthen our weak knees and take a new grip. Hebrews 12, verse 2, we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus. It's in the context of discipline. It starts with keeping your eyes on Jesus, and then you can strengthen and you can take a new grip. You see, when you recognize that Jesus endured infinitely more hardship for our benefit, for our ultimate thriving, he endured infinitely more hardship for our ultimate thriving than we ever will. When we see the agony that Jesus endured on our behalf, the abandonment, the loss, the hostility, the disapproval, the betrayal, the pain, the crucifixion, when we see the agony Jesus endured on our behalf so that we could enjoy God's friendship, an eternal inheritance, total acceptance, forever honor, a bodily resurrection, and glory beyond our wildest imagination, when we see what Jesus endured on our behalf to give us all that, then we'll be more willing to endure hardship for him. When we see that in his suffering, Jesus was actually seeking me, then we'll be willing to seek him in our suffering. And in the process, our roots will be driven deeper into his glory and goodness, because that's his purpose. Would you pray with me? Lord, thank you for the privilege of living. Lord, thank you for all the comforts and the little suffering that I've had to endure. And yet, as my perfect Father in heaven, Lord, you've threaded difficulty and hardship and suffering into my story, just like everyone who's watching, streaming, participating today. Lord, would you help us to turn some corners, not out of shame, but out of joining you in your paideia, your desire for our ultimate thriving, not out of masochism, out of wisdom, not because you're a sadist, but because you're the perfect Father that we have always longed for. Lord, there's a lot of pain in a fallen world, but you have a plan for us. And even when we can't see it, that doesn't mean it's not there. Would you please help us learn to endure? Would you please help us set our eyes on Jesus? Would you please help us to learn to seek you in our suffering, because Jesus did that for us. Amen.
Your love's making all things new. You're working it all for good. And for the things of this world, there is hope renewed in a light that is found in you. You make all things new. You make all things new. Yesterday and forever, your love never changing. This hope never fading. Hallelujah. But faith is in things unseen, bringing light where it has not been, speaking things that are not as if they were. And I am alive in you. You make all things new. You make all things new. Yesterday and forever, your love never changing. This hope been open. The heavens have been open. I know that I am chosen. I am alive in you. I am alive in you. God, you are restoring all things for your glory. I am alive in you. I am alive in you. The heavens have been open. I know that I am chosen, but I am alive in you. I am alive in you. God, you are restoring all things for your glory. I am alive in you. I am alive in you. You make all things new. You make all things new. Yesterday and forever, your love never changing. This hope never fading. Hallelujah. Yesterday and forever, your love never changing. This hope never fading. Hallelujah.
I'm thankful for the reminder this morning of a little bit of the behind the scenes things that God is doing as we walk through difficult things in our lives. I appreciate Mark's message this morning. Thank you for being with us. I want to encourage you to check out our Facebook page. Throughout the week, we'll post encouraging things for you. And if you're new, check out our website, hometownchurch.com. And in a few moments, we're going to have an address on the screen where you can put in a prayer request. We'd love the privilege to pray for you throughout the week. Maybe you're going through something or you know somebody who is. Take advantage of that. Next week, we're going to begin a two-part series where we're going to be looking at practical ways that you and I can invest our lives in things that will really last. I'm looking forward to that. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful rest of your time today celebrating moms, and God bless you.